Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about triangle congruence. Today we're going to look at side-side-side congruence postulate. If you were in my class last year, we actually covered this. So it's review. You're going to be going through 4 different congruence postulates over the next couple of days. I think we only did like maybe 2 or 3 of them. All right. So the postulate states that if 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to the 3 sides of a second triangle, then the 2 triangles are congruent. Okay, so we're going to write a congruent statement for these triangles. And then we're going to explain our reasoning. So our congruent statement, triangle A, B, C is congruent to triangle. Now this is important. Notice how many hash marks are on each side. The 2 sides that have 1 hash mark, that's saying that those 2 sides are congruent. And the sides that have 2 hash marks are congruent to each other, and the side that has 3 hash marks, they are congruent to each other. So we can say that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle RST. And our reasoning, well, they've really helped us out here. We're saying that this side is congruent to this side, so that's given to us. And then side BC is congruent to side ST, and side CA is congruent to side TR. Okay, so I know it's pretty obvious that they did tell us that everything was congruent, but that's our reasoning, because the postulate says that if 3 sides of the triangle are congruent to the 3 sides of the second triangle, then the 2 triangles are congruent. So we've written out that all those sides are congruent based on our drawing, and we can say that those 2 triangles are congruent. Okay. Let's take a look at another one. It says, decide whether the congruent statement is true. Explain your reasoning. All right, so we're saying that triangle A, B, D is congruent to triangle C, D, B. Now remember that order matters, so I'm going to trace it with my fingers. A and C would be corresponding to each other. B and D, and then D and B. So if we're looking at this, we can see that, first of all, A and D, the side AD, is congruent to the side CB. We can also see that the side AB is congruent to the side CD. Now the question though is the line segment DB congruent to the line segment BD? Okay, and in this case I would say yes, because they're the same line. Okay, so this was given. I'm going to slowly get you into writing proofs here. This was also a given. And then we can say that B, the line segment BD, is congruent to the line segment DB. And we know that because it's the same line. Okay. And since we were able to show that all the sides were congruent to each other, we can say that triangle A, B, D is, yes, in fact, congruent to C, D, B. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and take a look at the next one and decide whether or not that congruent statement is true. Write down your reasoning, just like I did above. go ahead and pause the video while you do it, and then when you're ready to go on, start your video again. Okay, let's take a look here. We have some given information. We know that the side ST, the line segment ST, is congruent to the line segment QT. And that's given information. And then we have that line SR is congruent to the line QR. That's also given to us. And then if we look at this sketch here, we have TR is congruent to TR. And we know that because it's the same line. Now I want to point something out. When I said that these two line segments were the same, notice that I did BD and DB, because we want things to stay in the correct order, okay? So for the top triangle, BD is facing one way, and then the other triangle, DB, is facing the other way. But in this case, both triangles, the order is the same for both triangles. You have TR and TR are in the same positions in your congruent statement. So since those things are true, like we have shown that all three sides are congruent, we can go ahead and say now that these two triangles are congruent. Okay, let's look at the next side here. Oh, I forgot me. Some of the copies are a little wonky. It sounds like some of you are missing some pages. I'm sorry. I just had to have people help me out with it, and it must have missed some. Okay, so what we just did was side, side, side congruence. Okay, now we're going to look at a different congruence postulate. It's called side, angle, side, SAS. Okay, and this is the side, angle, side congruence postulate. If two sides of the included triangle of one triangle are congruent to two sides and the including angle of the second triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Okay, one quick thing before we move on though. You know how I was writing all this down? The reason we can say that those three or these two triangles are congruent is the side, side, side postulate. Okay, so if we're writing down the reasons why everything is the way that it is, we could say that these are congruent, these triangles are congruent because of this postulate. Okay, because of the side, side, side postulate. Okay. All right, so what this postulate is saying is it's saying that this triangle is congruent to this triangle because we know that we have the sides are congruent, and then in order we have a congruent angle and then another congruent side. Okay, so let's take a look. It says decide whether enough information is given to prove that the triangle is congruent using the side, angle, side congruence postulate. Okay, so let's take a look here. This side is congruent, and this side is congruent, and this angle is congruent. But here's the problem. This angle is not between the two sides. We would have to say that this angle right here is congruent to prove that those triangles are congruent to each other, okay? So this one is a no. It does not have enough information. We would need to know that the angle between the two sides is congruent, and we don't know that, okay? Let's take a look here. We have these two sides are congruent, and then we have that the angles are congruent, and then the sides are congruent. So on this one, it's in order, okay? You've got side, angle, side, side, angle, side. So we can say that, yes, this is enough information to say that those two triangles are congruent. All right, let's take a look here. We have a side and a congruent angle. And there's going to be all kinds of things that we can do when we know that these lines here are parallel. But in this case, it doesn't tell us that AB and FE are parallel to each other. So we just have to assume the only thing that we know for sure that's congruent is a side and an angle. Okay, so I'm going to say no on this one. We do not have enough information. Now, if they had said that angle, or the side AB and the side FE were parallel to each other, then we could use alternate interior angles here. I know that we did that last year in my class. And we could say that F and B are congruent and A and E are congruent. But since we don't know that for sure, we cannot say that those two triangles are congruent to each other. All right. Let's take a look underneath. It says determine the angle measure or side measure that is needed in order to prove that each set of triangles are congruent by side angle side. Okay, so you have AR is 12, RT is 8, and the angle in the middle, R right there, is 70 degrees. And then for the next triangle, you have that BS is 12, which is the same here. And then you have the angle in the middle, S, is 70 degrees, just like here. But we need to show we need to say that that last side is 8. Okay, so RT right here corresponds with SW in our congruent statement. So to be able to show that these two triangles are congruent, we would need SW to be 12. Okay, or not 12, I'm sorry. We need it to be the same as RT, which was 8. All right. Let's take a look at the next two triangles. We have CDE and FGH. Okay, it looks like FGH has given us some more information. So we're saying that FG, this line segment, is 7, GH is 11, and the angle between them is 45. So let's go to the next triangle. CD is 7, that's perfect. And then the next line side is DE, which is the same as 11. So we just need to show that the angle between them, angle D, is the same measure as angle G. So we're going to say, to make this true, we're going to say that the measure of angle D is 45 degrees. Okay, see if you can do the 15 and 16, and then when you're ready, go ahead and press play. All right, we have the congruent angles already. We have these congruent sides. So I need a side that corresponds with JK that is equal to 2. And if you look at the order of our congruent statement, we can do MN is equal to 2. And that would give us enough information now to see that those two triangles are congruent. Let's take a look at the last one. We have our first side is 6, our second side is 4. Let's see, QS. They're messing with us a little bit. Look at, they redid the order. They're saying that QS is 6, so QS, and then RS is 4, and the angle between them this time is S. It's not in the middle of our congruent statement here, it's at the end. So we need to pay attention when we're doing that over here, because we have TV is 6, which corresponds to this, and then UV is 4. Now the angle that needs to be 20 needs to be in the same position. So this is angle S, which means that angle V, the measure of angle V, needs to be 20 degrees. All right, let's take a look at the other side, and we're going to start getting into some proofs here. But let's visually do what we just did on the front side. So our corresponding points and angles here. Okay, so it looks like we're just missing this angle. So we're gonna add in 65 degrees here to show that those two angles are congruent by side angle side. And then same thing here, we have 7 and 6. So we need to show that this angle right here is 50 degrees to have enough information to show that those two angles are congruent. Okay? And then when we do that, let's write a congruent statement too. I know it's not asking for it, but it's a really good practice. I'm gonna do TBW. Okay, and then the angle that corresponds with T is actually R, because this angle is flipped around, or this triangle is flipped around. So this will be RDZ. And then over here, I'm going to do CTA. So triangle CTA is congruent to triangle. Now this one's twisted a little bit, so it would be the same as DGO. Order matters, so make sure you're paying attention. All right, let's do a proof, okay? We actually did this last year. I don't know if you remember, if you were with me, if you did this. But a proof is a series of statements and reasons to prove that something is true, okay? So let's see what we're given here. We want to eventually prove that those two triangles are congruent to each other. So let's get our given information going. B is the midpoint of A and E. So what we can say is the line segment AB is congruent to the line segment EB. And the reason is the definition of midpoint. So if you actually go and look at the definition of midpoint, it would tell you that those two line segments are congruent to each other. So let's take a look at the next one. It says B is the midpoint of CD, okay? So then we're doing the same thing again here. We're saying that line segment DB is congruent to line segment CB. And again, I should have left myself some space. It's the same thing. It's definition of midpoint. Sorry, it should line up, but I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so we're saying that these two sides are congruent to each other. Now let's go back to last year when I taught you all the angle relationships. Does anybody know what these are called? Right here. Those are vertical angles. Okay, so when you have two intersecting lines, they create vertical angles that are congruent. So we can say that angle ABD is congruent to angle EBC because they are vertical angles. Okay, so now we have a side, angle, side. So we can say now that we've shown all of that, that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle EBC by side, angle, side postulate. Okay, so when it asks for a proof, this is what we're doing. It's a systematic way of showing that information is true and why it's true, using definitions and postulates and theorems and things like that. Okay? All right, so your homework tonight, let's take a look at it. You're gonna do a lot of the same stuff that we just did. Okay. And you're gonna have, at the end, you'll have 2 proofs. Okay, so you'll have one for side, 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 and you'll have one for side, angle, side. So make sure you look at the given information. Actually, I think these are both side, side, sides. Anyways, I'll let you look at that. And I'll have your homework solutions for you tomorrow so that you can check and see how you did. All right, you guys, have a great day. Please let me know if you need anything.